But right now, we're going on to our next guest, and we have Rachel Premack joining us from New York, and we're going to talk about what's going on lately with Target. Rachel, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
Rachel, I'm really excited to get into this a little bit because kind of the news everywhere, right? Everybody's talking about Target sales. We've got too much inventory. We've got too much stuff. Coming out of Q1, they were like, we did not account for these incredible transportation costs. We were not expecting this, right? But Q2 last summer, they finished out Q2 earnings last summer, and their Q2 earnings report said, we're expecting increased transportation costs through the end of 2021 and the peak season. So let's kind of like cut through the BS here. What's real, what's not with Target right now?
Right, so what's happening with Target right now is that they have way too much inventory, but sales have not increased at the same pace. So right now, looking at Q1 2021 to Q1 2022 for Target, inventory is up 33%, but sales is only up 4% over that 1 year period. And we're actually seeing that at other big box retailers as well. So it's not a Target exclusive issue, but definitely these retailers expected way more sales than what actually happened.
And Rachel, moving forward now that we're seeing all these inventory levels, we also know that warehouse prices are also really increasing and also really starting to add on to a lot of price increases. What does it look like really getting rid of all of these excess inventories moving forward, making room for upcoming seasons like back to school and things like that?
Right. So looking at Target specifically, and as well as a few other retailers, even Abercrombie and Fitch, Gap, Walmart, kind of a slew of consumer retailers, they're seeing some pretty significant markdowns. A reporter at Forbes called it, quote, markdown mania. So that's one side of things. They're just selling TVs, patio sets, clothing at pretty significant markdowns. The other side of things is that they are canceling inbound orders, or at least that is what Target CEO told investors last week, last week. So just a few kind of different strategies to try to get rid of some of this excess inventory.
I've got to wonder now how much, obviously a lot of this hinges on consumer behavior and their buying habits changing. And people just don't have that discretionary income to just kind of spend as they did during the height of the pandemic. But I've got to wonder now, do you think that there's any indication of consumers starting to shop small or them to get worried about now supporting their favorite smaller businesses? Because obviously with inflationary pressures, smaller businesses have that tighter bottom line that they've got to keep up. Is there any hint of consumers starting to kind of maybe take care of the smaller businesses and leave the bigger box retailers a little bit out to dry?
I think that would be an interesting trend where I haven't reported or looked into that specifically, but we do know that from the beginning of the pandemic to now, that consumers definitely, preferred the Walmarts, the Amazon, in large part because they wanted to buy online. So I think looking at Etsy's or another retailer or platform would also be an interesting look into this.
And Rachel, what are your thoughts around these retailers, a lot of these shippers, producers, manufacturers getting hit with these, margins getting cut, and now we're seeing inventory levels at these highs? What are your thoughts around job openings? Do you think they're going to be able to support the current openings that they have now? Do you anticipate potential drawbacks and potential, openings, or some of these companies not really going to be able to take on as much labor as they initially thought they would need it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, job openings are still at pretty impressive numbers. Unemployment's still very low right now. But we did see Amazon specifically say, we hired way too many people earlier this year, and we really need to cut back. They've already started to try to renegotiate some of their warehouse contracts. So I wouldn't be surprised if I would see pullbacks in, hiring sprees that some of these big retailers have gone on for sure.
And then moving back to Target, when we were talking about Target kind of 2021, like mid 2021, they were like the poster child for success in supply chain diversification and really kind of capitalizing on that e-commerce movement. Their partnership with Shipt did really, really well. We talked about them bringing the Ulta Beauty in-house and kind of making that like a really, really kind of strong high point of their business strategy. What made them flip now to kind of going from doing so well and being the poster child for pandemic success on that e-commerce side to now being like, I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain the rate that we were doing? Is it all to blame on consumer conditions and inflation, or was there something going on with their business practices that we think could have been that switch of the flip of the switch?
I really think for now, my understanding is that it is just kind of the consumer sentiment rather than anything specifically Target messed up on. They did have considerably higher inventory buildup compared to sales, which I think kind of made them the target or poster child of this whole inventory conversation. You know, if you look at Home Depot, or actually if you look at Costco, which is a different kind of business than Target for sure, they had a 26% buildup in inventory, but sales went up 16%. So a few other retailers were able to navigate this environment a little bit better. But I think, yeah, for sure, looking at consumer sentiment, inflation. The other big thing is that maybe those consumers who do have a little bit more discretionary spending, who aren't as hard hit by inflation, they're just spending money on other stuff. They're traveling, they're going to restaurants, they're going to the movies, they're spending money on hotels and airfare. So people in 2020 and 2021, there really wasn't anything to do other than to buy things online in the view of the consumer. But now there are real world things to do that are just add to cart forever and ever.
And I've got to follow this up by asking about kind of that top scale of consumer that you brought up, Jessica. I think that's a really good point. It seems like right now, if you look at my social media, everyone's either one in Europe or two buying luxury goods. And we're talking luxury is in like top line designer brands, higher kind of luxury home items. Do you think that this is a trend that we're going to continue to maybe see, is that people spending less on those big box retailers, and that's going to hurt them making more luxury purchases and making more kind of travel experience purchases instead?
I think that is definitely forecasted right now, that travel and hotels and those sorts of things will definitely continue to perhaps return to pre-pandemic levels. We also are seeing massive increases in flight costs. I think we saw like record or almost record month-over-month increases in terms of plane tickets, just the cost of that. So there's definitely a lot of uncertainty right now, and tracking these big retailers is a great way to see what's going on in the broader economy. But what's interesting is that even though these big retailers say they built up too much inventories, other retailers kind of anecdotally have mentioned that they're still looking for containers, looking for truckers to move their things. So it's just a very confusing time right now. But I do agree that everyone I know is in Italy right now. They all decided to go to Italy. So we'll see how that continues on for the next few months.
I can't say that I'm not jealous. Like, if I could be in Europe right now, I would love to be here. But, that's all right. All right, Rachel, thank you for joining us this morning. Great to have you, as always. Go check out her content up on freightwaves.com and give a follow on Twitter as well if you haven't yet. Right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more FreightWaves Now in just a few minutes.